Have you ever felt invisible to your own family? Have you ever given your love, time, and care for decades only to realize one day that you're no longer wanted politely, quietly, without an argument, just a simple message that makes your heart ache? In this story, you'll follow Ellen and George, a couple who devoted their lives to their children and grandchildren, only to face rejection when they expected warmth and gratitude. By listening to their journey, you'll learn how to recognize when love becomes conditional, how to reclaim your dignity, and how stepping away from those who undervalue you can lead to unexpected peace, happiness, and self-discovery. You'll see that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary for your well-being. Have you experienced this kind of quiet rejection where politeness masks pain? How did it make you feel, and what did you do about it? Share your thoughts in the comments because your story matters, and you are not alone. All we want is a quiet Christmas with the younger generation. Don't take anything personally. Please don't come. The message was that. Only 22 words, but they were all like a slap across the face. Sharp enough to sting for days, but not harsh or noisy. My name is Ellen. I'm 70. Additionally, my son told me I wasn't welcome for the first time this Christmas. Not by shouting, not over a major family dispute. No, with something worse. Courteousness, detachment, and dismissal. I was putting out the pine-scented candles when my phone began to ding. As I hummed a tune, I could see Nathan's reaction when he saw the tree illuminated. George continued to work on the snowblower outside in the garage. I clicked on the mail. I recall my breath catching in my throat and my hands becoming motionless. All we want is a quiet Christmas with the younger generation. After reading it once, I read it again and again. What was the intended meaning of that? We were a nuisance, a noise, not from shame or embarrassment, but more from the realization that someone doesn't want you. My face became hot. Don't take anything personally, please. The hardest hitting sentence was that one. As though he believed this would lessen the blow, I read it out loud under my breath, as if it were kinder to gently push someone out. It didn't. It exacerbated the situation, because the true meaning was to not react. Don't inquire. Simply absorb it in silence. The last 3 words are, don't come. It was there. It was not a recommendation, a discussion, or a choice in which I was not involved. When the door closes and I'm outside, we had just decorated the Christmas tree 2 nights prior, and I sat down hard on the stairs and stared at it. The angel had a little slant. I would have corrected that myself, picturing Nathan pointing to it and posing inquiries. Now he would not see it. They wouldn't. We were not invited. I read the message again, more slowly this time, as though it would make sense if I read between the lines. All we want is a quiet Christmas with the younger generation. Who was I? Static? Chaos? Did our gifts cause them any discomfort? Did they believe we were too old to be important or uninteresting? The message wasn't the only thing that hurt. That was its meaning. I began to recall. I baked a large batch of ginger cookies from scratch last year. Oh, these are a little more traditional, Emily responded with a kind smile after taking one bite. We're making an effort to limit the kids' access to sweets. I recall thinking that I ought to have inquired first. I showed Nathan a picture album I brought over 2 years ago. Let's avoid giving him too much family history just now, Emily suggested. He's still getting used to our schedule. To give them a respite last spring, I volunteered to take Nathan to the park. We're grateful for that, but we don't want to make him accustomed to things we can't sustain, Adam added, as if they had to curb their love habit. Emily texted me that week to ask if I could simply wait to post so many photos online because she thought it could cause awkwardness with her family. I removed all of your posts. They didn't express gratitude. Emily claimed that the science kit I got Nathan last summer wasn't age-appropriate and that they were attempting to curtail screen-related thought. It wasn't electronic. It involved hands-on activities. They never opened it despite magnets and lenses. This doesn't arrive now. Everything was obliterated by 3 words. We worked around their schedules for the holidays, the sick days, the late-night phone calls, the diaper changes, the thousands we donated to help with their first mortgage payment, and the week I painted their guest room to save them from having to hire someone. A week after Nathan was born, the baby blanket I sewed vanished from the cot. It's all gone. Shortly after sunset, George entered. His coat was still covered in snowflakes. He immediately recognized my face. "Are you all right, Ellie?" I gave the phone to him. Without saying a word, he returned the message after reading it slowly twice. There was no surprise in his eyes, simply something more substantial. "Final," he murmured softly. "If they don't want our warmth, perhaps we should show them what they're truly rejecting." I had trouble sleeping that night. With the lights on the tree slowly flashing, I sat in silence in the living room. I considered the years. Adam used to bring me drawings from school, I recalled. How I managed to keep everyone, the way he held on to my hand on kindergarten's first day. He now said that we weren't welcome in a message. Emily once told me, "We're trying to build our own traditions," and I recalled that. I concurred. "I understand," I answered. This was beyond my comprehension. I carefully folded Nathan's sweater after opening the present box. I had worked on it for weeks. His favorite color, a rich forest green, was warm. It would now remain with the others in the closet. For him, we had already wrapped books. A snow globe with a small train inside and a wooden puzzle. We carefully selected each one. I felt nothing now, just stared at them, simply exhausted. Reminiscent of the last time Adam thanked me, I reclined on the couch. I was unable to recall the exact moment. The last time he gave me an uninvited hug. He just called to say hi the last time. Perhaps we had done too much, given too generously, and made things too simple, I thought. Perhaps they no longer considered us human. Perhaps we were merely background. They no longer wanted to look at the old wallpaper. I started crying at that point. Silence the tears. The type that wait for days behind your eyelids before slipping out when it's dark and nobody is there to notice. We weren't invited to Christmas, so I didn't cry. When I eventually realized that we were never truly included, I started crying. Not in the important manner. We served a purpose until we became inconvenient. In name alone, we were family. And I was unable to turn away from that once I saw it. I had been making excuses for years, telling myself that it wasn't personal, that they were busy, and that it was just a new generation. However, it was. It was a long time ago. Now I recognize the pattern, all the gentle rejections, all the times I was smiled at and pushed away. Furthermore, it wasn't shocking that the message was issued a week before Christmas. There was a conclusion. Before the lights on the tree went out, I sat in that room for a while. After that, I got up, went to the window, and gazed out at the yard blanketed in snow. The street was calm and quiet, but not the kind of calm that Adam intended, because this piece had grief as well as something else. The wind was kind. Clarity. Something in me altered that night. It's out of understanding, not anger. They made up their minds. It was time for us to create ours. That night, stillness felt like armor, even though they claim it's golden. George and I didn't talk much after all that. We didn't have to. Like old perfume, Adam's word lingered in the air. Words continued to cling to the walls. Don't come. Thus, we didn't. However, we also left home. The notion was originally spoken out loud by George. The following morning, we sat at the kitchen table, each of us making coffee in silence. No alcohol was consumed by us. "Come on," he urged. Startled, I looked up. "Where?" He gave a shrug. "Somewhere they won't anticipate. Somewhere lovely. Only us." I was hesitant at first. It was like fleeing. Then, though something changed within me, this wasn't running, sorry. It was reclaiming. Nobody needed an explanation from us. Permission was not required. We still had the resources, and we'd use it for ourselves, for once. Thus, we reserved the villa at Valley, one of the most upscale winter resorts in California. Warm fires, snow-capped roofs, and a scene straight out of a picture. It was the most expensive excursion we had ever taken. However, since it wasn't about them this time, we didn't recoil. We were the focus. 2 days prior to Christmas, we arrived. Lanterns were lining the driveway. The ceiling was high within. We had a view of the mountains via a wall of glass that was so breathtaking that I briefly stopped breathing. We did the interior design ourselves, just garlands, warm lights, and a few gold decorations we bought from a small store in town. Nothing too fancy. By the fire, I hung 3 stockings. 3. one blank, one for George, and one for myself. Not for what was absent, not for them. We ordered food from the best caterer in town, lit a fire, and listened to our favorite music. Buttery rolls, scalloped potatoes, lobster tail, and desserts too elegant to name. We didn't do it for attention. We took this action because we had dedicated decades of our lives to Adam, Emily, and a family that only seemed to appreciate us when we were helpful. It was time to invest ourselves once more. We dressed up on Christmas Eve. For a Christmas that never happened, I wore the turquoise cashmere dress I had purchased 3 years prior. The tuxedo George had not worn since Adam's wedding was on. We enjoyed champagne, lobster, and a string quartet performance in the corner. It wasn't about the program, though. I realize it sounds dramatic. It has to do with happiness. Those who had always been good to us, such as old acquaintances, a neighbor who used to help me shovel, a woman George had mentored, individuals who saw us, and those who said things like, "I missed you," were invited, but no family members. Or you always brought a sense of home to the holidays. Nobody ever asked, "Can you bring something?" or avoid discussing politics. I never once felt like an outsider at my own party. And I laughed that night. For the first time in years, I laughed. Not for anybody else, not in a courteous manner. I chuckled to myself. We raised a glass to the music, the snow outside, and the unexpected guests. I also observed something in the middle of the evening. There were no phones. They were taking pictures, videos as well, the house, the lights, the clothes. I didn't ask for any of it. Everything had the appearance of something from a film, and it was shared. Is this location unbelievable? "This is the most beautiful Christmas I've ever seen," one of the guests remarked. The place was tagged by someone. A reel was posted by someone else. Since it wasn't about pretending for once, I didn't stop them. It was authentic. It was an actual fire. It was authentic music. It was genuine laughter. The happiness was genuine. After everyone had gone and the villa was once more peaceful later that evening, I watched the snow fall from the window. The sky was starry and navy blue. George covered my shoulders with a blanket. He said, "Merry Christmas," I muttered as I leaned into him. It truly feels like one for the first time in years. For a long period, we stood in that position. After a lifetime of giving, two individuals are now learning how to receive from one another, the outside world, and themselves. It was habit, not hope, that made me check my phone when I woke up on Christmas morning. All 69 of the missed calls were from Adam. I felt sick to my stomach. I took a while to read the messages. All I could do was look at the number. I could already sense the question beginning. "Did you own that villa? Are you in the valley? How come you didn't inform us?" However, this was perhaps the one that stung the most. It wasn't our intention. It was merely a miscommunication. We now mattered because we had something that they didn't. It's funny how that operates. I put the phone down. George was making coffee. He remained silent. He was not required to. Both of us were aware of this. They had no regrets. They were taken aback. I was shocked to learn that we had a life apart from them. We had more than they anticipated, which surprised them. We were shocked that we hadn't pleaded for inclusion. I didn't feel the need to respond at that point because we had finally realized that distance is just as much a gift as love. That Christmas, I gave myself something I hadn't felt in a long time, surrounded by snow, laughter, and people who truly cared. Calm. The posts continued to circulate over the following few days. We were tagged in a video by a buddy. "Best Christmas ever" was the caption for a group photo that someone else shared. Even members of our local church were commenting on the third day, saying, "You both look wonderful." "That dress is gorgeous, Ellen." George's party-throwing skills are still intact. Still, Adam has only left ambiguous texts and missed calls. Just bewilderment, no apology. And I came to a realization. I had been chasing their approval like a trophy I hadn't yet earned for years. I reasoned that they would notice me if I simply donated more, kept quieter, and presented myself better. But now they didn't have to see me. I had to look at myself. And I did. On that quiet, snowy morning in that outfit at that villa, at last I realized who I had always been. Furthermore, I was no longer invisible. At 6:12 a.m., the first communication arrived on the morning of Christmas. Then one more and one more. My phone screen was ablaze with missed calls by the time I poured my coffee. 69, everything from Adam. In the entire last year, he hadn't made that many calls. I didn't touch it at first. I simply sat there and stared at the blinking notification while holding my mug. I wasn't concerned by the calls. I understood what it wasn't. So it was the time, the desperation, the unexpected curiosity. It wasn't affection. There was no worry. Panic struck. And I knew why without even opening a single message. The posts had been viewed by them. The music, the friends, the clothes, the joy, the villa, and our Christmas. We didn't flaunt it. We didn't publicize it. But we also didn't hide it. We just lived for once. And people took notice. And all of a sudden we were in sight. They are humans, not grandparents, backups, or optional characters on the verge of passing away. People who had a desire. Around 8:00 a.m., I eventually opened the first voicemail. It was a brief, breathless message. "Please give me a call back, Mom. It's crucial. We must speak." No apologies, no happy Christmas, no recognition of his actions. All we have to do is speak. We acted as though we were still a team and a cohesive one. I performed one more, then another. "Is that truly your place? Are you all right? Why didn't you inform us of your departure?" I said something I didn't mean. It didn't turn out right. False. Don't come. It won't seem bad. It's quite obvious. I closed my eyes and reclined in the chair. It felt like a slow unraveling with every word I heard. It was my lies, not theirs. I had told myself those. Simply put, they're busy. They don't intend to cause harm. They'll change their minds. But now I could see the truth becoming more and more apparent with each message Adam left. Until they realized that other people believed we were important, they didn't think we did. George entered with a tray of croissants in tow. He arched an eyebrow at the expression on my face. "Calls?" I gave a nod. He put down the tray and drew out a chair. "Do you hear any of them?" "A couple. The same old tone. Half demand, half remorse." He grinned solemnly. "It's amazing how a nice caterer and a fireplace can improve a man's memory." I laughed a little dryly. We seemed to be intriguing once more. We both recognized it. Command. Adam wasn't attempting to get back in touch. He was attempting to gain control again, to remind us where we belong, to put us back in the box where we were silent, little, and always there. But now that I had experienced what it was like to live without waiting for their approval, that box no longer suited. Nor was I turning back. A fresh message appeared at midday. Emily this time. We looked at the photos. "A lovely location. I hope you are having fun. Nathan is missing you. No question mark, no feeling, simply flat." Then another, a few seconds later. "I'd love her to speak with you soon. Clear the air, perhaps. Make the air clear." That line really got to me, as if we'd both contaminated something, as if we were both at fault. The door was closed. We simply stopped knocking. It's not the same thing. I reread the message, paying particular attention to the word that made my stomach turn. Since it wasn't his fault, Nathan was the only thing that continued to pull at my heart. We weren't told not to come by him. He didn't leave the sweatshirt open or push the picture album away. He was a kid. However, they used his name as bait and a hook, and it was successful. I was aware of the pattern, so even though it hurt, I was unmoved. Nathan was the one who abruptly missed us whenever they needed something. Not when the days were long and boring, not when the months were peaceful. There were no calls back then, but now that people were asking and circulating inquiries, they recalled our existence. That's when it really hit me. I discovered my mother's old journal years after she went away. She wrote of her loneliness for the past 10 years, waiting for unanswered calls, unreceived cards, and constantly postponed visits. And I recall thinking, I won't let that be me, after reading what she had to say. However, I was an afterthought in the lives I helped create, just like her. But now that their world had fallen apart, they knocked. It was because they saw what I had, not because they saw me. I switched the phone off. That afternoon, we took a stroll. The air was crisp and the snow was heavy. George kept my hand throughout. We seldom talked. We didn't have to. There were more messages when we returned. We're having problems. Once more, the bank called. Can we meet, please? It was there. The truth is now coming out. It has nothing to do with the villa. It had to do with their home, money, and necessities. Until they needed to remove debt, we had been eliminated. I took a seat on the bed's edge and allowed that reality to settle in. Another item that I hadn't considered in years came back to me. It was a brief yet incisive moment. Adam was a college student at the time. He was short on tuition money, so he had called home. That week, George and I had just fixed the roof. The finances were tight. However, we sent him the money in less than an hour. No queries, no grievances. He never expressed gratitude. Not after, not then. A few weeks later, I texted, "Got it." That was it. And here we were once more. The same voice, the same fear, the same anticipation. I listened to a final voicemail. Adam's voice trembled. "Don't shut us out, please. I am aware of our error. I don't believe I believed we had more time." What is the time for? To continue to ignore us? To keep moving forward till we broke? George entered and took a seat next to me. He touched me with his hand. "Ellie, they're not searching for relatives. They are seeking a rescue." I gave a nod. They also want it without any inquiries, just a reset with no accountability. He returned the nod. "However, we can refuse." I became aware of how far we had come at that point, because I would have given in a year ago. I would have shed tears. I would have held myself responsible. Before they ever asked, I would have offered to help. I could see them plainly now, though. I also saw us. We were not cold-hearted. We were only human, and drawing a line was okay. We sat by the fire that night, poured 2 glasses of wine, and discussed it. Nor for ourselves, nor out of love or rage. If they ask again, how do we respond? I inquired. George didn't think twice. We are honest when we explain that our purpose is family, not deceit or rescue efforts. I gave a nod. If they take the first step themselves, we can help, I added, only if they demonstrate that they value us beyond what we can contribute. The decision was made in an instant. We would meet to correct the record, but not to apologize. For the first time, we weren't scared to let the phone ring till late at night. We met at a little cafe in town, one of those quiet spots with old bookcases and cracked cups. George and I picked a table facing the door in the corner after arriving early. The walkways were covered in gray slush as the snow outside started to melt. The feeling in my chest matched it. Adam arrived 10 minutes after the hour. For winter, his coat was too thin. He had disheveled hair. At first, he didn't even glance at us. As if he wasn't sure he wanted to be there, he continued to rub his hands together and look about the room. However, he was present, since he was in need of something. It's not that he missed us, not because he liked us all of a sudden. Without saying hello, he took a seat across from us. "We have till the end of next month, according to the bank." "That was it," he said. "No. How are you?" "No, you look fine. Not a meek apology either, only a due date." I waited. I allowed the quiet to deepen. After clearing his throat and fidgeting, he turned to face me. "I didn't mean to exclude you, Mom. This year we simply felt that a more modest celebration was necessary. The noise, the children, you know." "It would be better this way," Emily said. Something inside of me became quite still. I recognized his tone, his gentle explanation, and the way he always blamed the environment, his wife, or the circumstances rather than himself. He was chilly, not angry. Worst of all, he stated it as though it made sense. For example, you could wave your hand and make a vague allusion to noise levels to justify asking your parents not to attend Christmas. I turned to face George. I was proud of the way he looked at Adam without moving. Sturdy, strong, finished. I looked back at Adam. I answered calmly, "You didn't just cut us off. You made it apparent that we were unwanted and inconvenient." Adam moved around in his chair. "That's not how I intended it to sound." "But," I said, "it did, and I didn't mince words for the first time in years. You told me not to come. You didn't mention that we would miss you or that we could celebrate on another day." You closed the door behind him without turning around. He glanced at the table below. He ran his fingertips along the sugar packet's edge. No apology as of yet. George bent over. All 69 of the communications were visible to us. We listened to your panic. However, we never heard you express regret. You never once claimed to understand what you did." Adam's mouth clenched. "I was requesting money in an attempt to make things better." He winced at what I said. "That's not the case, is it?" George inquired. "Your tuition was covered by us. With your first home, we were helpful. After the second baby, we provided assistance. We have always been there to support you, and we received an SMS when we only needed kindness." I could see it in Adam's eyes when he finally looked up. Not bitterness, not shame, as though it were a burden for us to be at that table, as though we were the ones being challenging. When I realized that he hadn't come to inquire, my heart began to ache even more. He started to feel as though he was entitled to it. "I came here not to dispute," he added, leaning back. "No," I replied, "to pick up, you came here." When the waiter showed up, she poured us coffee. She set the cups down, asked if we needed anything else, and walked away as we sat in silence. Adam grabbed his mug. He abstained from alcohol. "We could lose the house," he finally said. "Emily's parents are no longer able to assist. We haven't yet told the children." "And if we say no, what will you tell them?" George inquired. Adam blinked. Obviously, he hadn't thought about that. I inhaled. "We had to draw the line at this point." I said, "You can fix this. You can take on more work, sell the automobile, restructure things, and speak with the bank. You aren't defenseless." "You're not understanding," he stated abrasively. My stomach turned at that tone. He disregarded us in that old, familiar manner, as though he had experienced more adversity than we had, and as though our age somehow erased our wisdom. George retrieved an envelope from inside his coat. He set it down on the table. Adam gazed at it. "That isn't a check," George commented. "It includes a copy of a budget plan, a contact at the credit union, and a list of financial advisors." Adam made no attempt to grab it. "Are you not providing us with anything?" he inquired. I said, "We're giving you what we ought to have given you years ago." "Responsibility," he said. The chair made a loud noise as it scraped the floor. "This is unbelievable," he whispered. "And I stood too, after all." "That's right. After everything." His voice became louder at that point. He wasn't merely angry. He was outraged and indignant. "Are you really going to abandon your own family?" He lost his temper. "You would rather go on ski vacations and buy lobster with all that money than assist your own son?" The cafe was bustling with activity. George's palm curled into a fist on the table, but he stayed sat. "Emily was correct," Adam growled. "Looks are all that mattered to you. You act as though we're strangers after posting images that portray us negatively. The surge of truth that was ready to be spoken made my heart race. Not because I was afraid. I claimed we didn't post anything. Others did. For once, we lived our lives. And you made an insult out of that. Your existence." Adam gave a sour laugh. "You believe that you are being honorable? You're egotistical and lazy. You have been martyrs for all these years." Guess what, though? Perhaps we needed to take a vacation from the guilt trips. Then George stood calmly and slowly. Guilt trips. No, it was love. You simply no longer recognized it. Adam raised his hands. I was aware that this was incorrect. "It was," Emily said. "You believe you are suddenly superior to us? You believe you are untouchable because you went on a lavish vacation?" "No," I replied. "We simply stopped pleading for respect." That temporarily silenced him. Roughly grasping the envelope, he tore it open and gazed at its contents. "So, is this it? Advice on a budget? Not much assistance?" "This is helpful," said George. "Assistance that does not empower you. Assistance that enables you to stand alone." Adam whispered, "You've changed." "No," I replied. He stormed out as soon as we woke up. Behind him, the doorbell jangled wildly. Silently, we settled the bill. As we walked away, nobody said anything, but I could sense their eyes, judgmental, inquisitive, unsure. The crisp, chilly air outside struck my face like truth. We took a leisurely stroll, holding hands. It was finality, not remorse, that made my steps feel heavy. Setting limits didn't seem like failure despite my long-held belief that it would. It was similar to breathing. We kept quiet back at the villa that night, Sitting by the fire, we observed the flames and allowed the silence to descend. I looked at my phone once and saw that Adam had sent me a new message. I suppose we are aware of our position. Although we did, I chose not to respond. However, a week later, the most surprising event occurred. Our address was put in Adam's handwriting on a genuine letter that was sealed in an envelope a week later. It wasn't an email or an SMS. I looked at it for a long time. I didn't open it immediately, but I brushed my fingers along the edge. After setting it on the table next to my tea, I took a seat and allowed the peaceful buzz of the villa to envelop me. In the other room, George was reading. Whatever this was, I wanted to be by myself. Upon opening it at last, the letter said, "Mom, Dad, I was angry. I suppose I still am, but I'm not sure to whom I'm angry anymore." No regrets or accountability were offered. Instead, the guilt was transferred from us to his wife and then to life itself. And I sensed it beneath every sentence, every line, the same inability to examine oneself. He wrote about the children, the difficulties they had recently faced, and his embarrassment at not being able to provide for them as they had in the past. As if our entire life, our absence, and our dignity were merely pieces in a moral chess game. He stated Emily expressed her disappointment in him and believed we were making a point at his expense. I was done allowing his words to breathe too much, so I folded the letter back into the envelope, not because it was valuable. George and I strolled down the snowy paths behind the property that afternoon. The sky was a gentle silver, the limbs were thick with frost, and the walk was still. The letter was not discussed. We already knew, so we didn't have to. More significantly, we were aware of who we were now and who we would never be again. The unspoken advocates who are hoping for scraps of goodwill. Adam's phone conversations ceased. The irate texts also did. All that was present was quiet, and there was something remarkably serene about it. But Emily didn't remain quiet. Weeks later, she sent me a courteous but scathing message. She wrote, "Your pride has caused you to split up the family. The kids have learned from you that money is more important than love. They'll remember how you abandoned us when we needed you one day. I read it 3 times. Love without respect isn't love. Thus I felt less and less each time, and it's not pride to remain silent after being rejected. It's getting better." I didn't respond. I also didn't block her. The message was simply left there to decay in its own righteousness. 3 months later, the valley saw the arrival of spring. Once more, the villa was silent. Wild flowers are starting to blossom as the snow melts from the eaves. Then an unexpected event occurred. Claire, our granddaughter, sent me a direct message. She was 17 years old, kind, considerate, and frequently caught in the midst of adult outbursts that she couldn't comprehend. She didn't say much. "Hello, Grandma. You are missed. Is it possible for me to come this summer?" Before I could stop them, tears pricked my eyes. George saw it. He nodded and grinned. Together we said, "Yes, darling. You're welcome at any time." For the first time in years, I felt unconditional love, and that one line altered everything for me. She arrived by herself in July. Adam did not make a call. Emily didn't send a message. Claire showed up with a tiny bag, big eyes, and an embrace that made me feel completely elated. She didn't inquire about the dispute. She was impartial. She simply sat with us, assisted with meal preparation, and inquired about her father's early years. We shared the sweet, gentle tales, the ones in which love had not yet become conditional. She then stated something that will always stick in my memory. "I appreciate you not forcing me to make a choice. Knowing how difficult it must have been to walk that line, I almost broke." When we dropped her off at the airport, I noticed the gloom in her eyes, a shadow that wasn't hers, but rather the result of years of bitterness and quiet from those who wouldn't accept responsibility. Before boarding, she gave me a cheek kiss. "I cherish you both. I always will." Since this wasn't the end, I didn't cry as we watched her leave. It marked the start of something novel, a more subdued legacy, one in which falling in love didn't imply losing oneself. That year, we had another Christmas celebration at the villa, complete with music, laughter, and yes, presents under the tree. Thoughtful ones, not costly ones. Nobody inquired about Adam. Nobody mentioned the letter. I also noticed the strain. I didn't overlook the duty. I missed my former dream in which kindness was always associated with family. However, that dream is no longer there, and something genuine has taken its place. People who only think about me when they're in distress don't need to want me. I don't have to continue proving myself to people who judge love based on utility. George and I created a cozy life together. And lastly, rather than acting it out, we are experiencing it. Therefore, you're not alone if you've ever felt that you don't belong. We didn't abandon our family. We strolled in the direction of tranquility.